Hey guys, welcome to another one of my guides. This one will be covering Black Swan, a character I've been looking forward to for ages. Her kit is finally completely finalized, meaning there won't be any more updates to this over time. She's probably had the most wording changes I've ever seen in a beta, but everything should be fine now nonetheless. In this video, I'll be covering her best Lightcones, relic sets and planar ornaments, with a little focus on her Eidolons and her team building, so let's get straight into it. As per usual, I'll start with her updated kit. Black Swan's talent works like you would expect a 5-star Sampo to be like, inflicting wind shear on the enemy with a stacking mechanic. Since this ability is super long and tedious for no reason, I'll just summarize it quickly. When a dot effect deals damage, there is a base chance for a stack of Arcana to be placed on the enemy per dot effect. Each stack of Arcana increases the damage multiplier by 12%, capping out at 50 Arcana stacks. Whenever an enemy with Arcana takes their turn, it does damage and stacks reset to 1. If the enemy with Arcana has 3 or more stacks, it does an additional 180% flat multiplier to adjacent enemies and rolls for Arcana application once again. When Arcana has 7 or more stacks, it gains the property of ignoring 20% defense. Black Swan's skill does an AoE attack that reduces the defense of enemies hit by around 20%, which synergizes well with her talent defense ignore. Her ultimate inflicts an effect called Epiphany onto all enemies hit by it, making enemies take 25% more damage in their turn and making Arcana stacks not reset after dealing damage for one time. This basically means that whenever her ult effect is up, you can build up a significant amount of Arcana stacks and deal insane amounts of damage whenever the enemy takes their turn. Her traces further improve her Arcana generation, making her skill and dot applying attacks have a chance at applying Arcana too, whilst also giving her a talent similar to Ruan Maze, giving Black Swan bonus damage for building effect hit rate. You generally want to build around this and shoot for 120 effect hit rate to gain the full value out of the damage. Black Swan's signature Lightcone is a must-pull based on art alone. But in all seriousness, this is a really strong Lightcone for buffing Black Swan's personal damage. It has a small ramp-up time but provides really strong buffs to compensate. It gives 40% effect hit rate, 20% attack and nearly 30% defense shred on top of that. As a standalone, defense shred is pretty good, but when added to itself, it scales significantly harder. You can see the massive jump in damage when the signature is added to the equation. That's mostly the reason why it's so good in comparison to the other options. Notice how all the Lightcones with defense shred happen to be super good. Her other options are pretty limited to say the least. You only really have 3 options outside her signature and there is another, but it's pretty cope to say the least. The first option is Sampo's Lightcone, Eyes of Prey. There's not really much to say here as it just gives a ton of stats that Black Swan wants, making it her best option outside her signature. Good Night Sleep Well is always going to be great on any dot character that wants to damage, but its lack of effect hit rate makes hitting a decent amount really hard, especially if you don't want to farm Pan-Galactic. Resolution suffers from the same problem, but it buffs the entire team which makes up for it, so it's an okay option if you want your Black Swan to do no damage but for the greater good of a slight DPS increase to everyone else. For her relic sets, you want the set made specifically for dot characters. Pretty surprising, right? You can also use a combination of 2-piece sets, but I'd personally recommend farming the dot set for her, as you indirectly get pieces for your Kafka or other dot characters. If you're extremely based and are running Crit Swan, Quantum set is the best bet. For her planers you can basically just pick between Pan-Galactic and Glamoth, as both are pretty competitive and have their own benefits to them. However, one is in a completely trash world and the other is a universal set good on anyone, so take your pick I guess. I know people will ask me about tutorial, but no, I'm not going to recommend you to build the hottest character in the game with a support LC and an energy recharge rope. I don't care how good it is. Even still, it's not better than running a damage Lightcone unless you aren't using one of the 3 good ones. For main stats, you generally want an effect hit rate chest, mostly to make up for her low base chance on Arcana and to help hit the 120 effect hit rate target. But if you're confident, you can run an attack chest and build as much effect hit rate as humanly possible and it will be slightly better. For everything else, it's the usual speed boots attack or wind damage orb and an attack rope. Before you ask if you should run an attack or an damage orb, you should just pick the one with better sub stats as they are really close in damage. For her Eidolons, you really want to either grab her E1 or go straight to E6 as they are the most relevant Eidolons for her. Her E2 and E4 are okay I guess, but I wouldn't really call them worth per se. Her E1 enables enemies afflicted with wind shear, bleed, burn, or shock will have their corresponding wind, physical, fire, or lightning resistance respectively reduced by 25%. This is basically equivalent to taking Ruan Mei's ultimate, copy-pasting it and giving it 100% uptime for the entire team. I don't think I need to say how good that is. It's so good in fact, that it's much better than her Lightcone for team damage, so I would pretty easily recommend to pull her E1 if you want to vertically invest in Black Swan. On the other hand, her E6 basically doubles her Arcana generation, meaning your single target damage goes up by a very scary amount. It's one of the better Eidolons in the game, and if you were truly trying to be free from Kafka, this is pretty much the only way you can do it. Speaking about Kafka, it's time for the supposed team building section. Every other guide will be telling you to play her with Kafka and Ruan Mei, which is correct. But I'm going to take a different approach and highlight all her copium comps where she is the main star of the team. Starting off with Sampo and Ruan Mei, in this team Black Swan can achieve really high dot numbers, and Sampo can help by enabling them with his E4. You can also swap Sampo out here for Tingyun to help with Swan's ultimate rotation. Next, Crit Swan. Probably the worst idea ever, but if you were to play it, use either Sparkle or Branya with Silverwolf for single target damage, or you can use Ruan Mei for general use. This team will most definitely not be able to clear Memory of Chaos without whale supports, but at least she looks good clearing in 8 cycles. Overall, Black Swan's reception seems to be quite negative as of now, but I believe she is overall a pretty great character who I think will make a significant impact on dot teams, with her basically single-handedly fixing Kafka's average AoE and further amping her single target damage. She should make for a great pull overall, and I'm pretty excited to absolutely ruin my account by pulling her and putting a crit set on her. But anyways, thanks for watching, subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you in the next video.